Jason Bourne is directed by Paul Greengrass and stars Matt Damon, Tommy Lee Jones, Alicia Vikander, and Vincent Cassel, and is the fifth film in the popular Bourne franchise that started in 2002. And I remember when I was younger, I used to watch the Bourne films a lot. I thought they were good spy movies. The first three movies, the Bourne Identity, the Bourne Supremacy, and the Bourne Ultimatum, and I really liked that those original three movies brought Matt Damon into being an action star. And they also developed what is now called the shaky cam technique by making a lot of action scenes a lot more, kind of more like a documentary, like kind of a guerrilla style technique. And I really enjoyed what they did with this story about a guy who formerly worked for a government agency and is learning about his past. And I also got a chance to finally watch The Bourne Legacy, and I wasn't too big a fan of that movie, and it wasn't really the fact that it didn't have Matt Damon in it, because that movie just felt like it was just very uninteresting and didn't really have much going for it. And I thought that it probably should have just been its own movie instead of just connecting to the Bourne franchise, and have probably a better writer involved. But going to this film, I had a lot of huge expectations for this one, because for one, not only did they bring back Paul Greengrass, who directed the Bourne Supremacy and Bourne Ultimatum, but you also got Matt Damon coming back to play Jason Bourne, so it was actually got me pumped to actually see what they would do with the character again after coming out of retirement. And so basically how the story goes is that Jason Bourne is now it's years later, and he's now living on his own in Greece. Pretty much what happens is the CIA have tracked where Jason Bourne is at, and so the CIA goes after Jason Bourne, and as the story progresses, you're starting to see Jason Bourne discover more things about his past that we didn't see from the previous movies. So a plot involving the CIA trying to use this guy who is making this technology so that it can have more surveillance on people that the CIA can use. Lo and behold, I can honestly say this film was a disappointment for me. I went into it with pretty good hoping that it'll be a good return to the franchise, and I wasn't really too big on this movie. Like, I didn't hate it, but I can say that I was definitely let down by it. Okay, here are my pros for the movie. First of all, I love Matt Damon, so him playing Bourne again was awesome. He nailed it. He is a lot more reserved this time, where he doesn't really have much. There are a lot of parts of the movie where he doesn't have much dialogue, so you can actually feel more of a presence of him like he did in the last movie with Ultimatum, where he pretty much loses his steam, and you can see all the tension in his face when he's just seeing his body language. I really enjoyed that. And I also loved Tommy Lee Jones. It was good seeing him back on the big screen, and I liked his role as the CIA director who's trying to go after Bourne. And I like Alicia Vikander. I'm not sure how you pronounce her name. Yeah, I thought this girl was pretty good. There's probably one nitpick I probably did have with her, though, is that her accent kind of goes in and out, where she's speaking American, but it seems like her Swedish accent kind of kicks in here and there, where it's slipping in and out. So that did kind of bother me. But I liked what she was doing. How she was kind of remind me of how Joan Allen was in the Bourne Supremacy, where you can see that all she wants to do is bring Jason in, and that she doesn't really want to kill him. So I do like her character and where they were going with it. I also enjoyed Vincent Cassel. I thought this guy, man, you talk about one of the best villains since the Bourne Identity. I thought this guy really was intense. He basically just like shot everybody that was in his way, and you can tell this guy wants Bourne dead, because you do see a lot of things what he does throughout this film that you can't that he'll just pretty much cap anyone that's in his way. And another thing I also like too is the direction it's going, because much like in the other Bourne films, they start using more of the shaky cam. They use it about the same way that Ultimatum did, where it's a lot of quick cuts, but you can still see what's going on. But it also gives you that guerrilla style filmmaking, where you're seeing everything go by so fast that it creates a lot of tension for the moment. So I can say that the director Paul Greengrass does work with shaky cam the best, because he does line up these shots where you do see it is kind of hard to see at first when things are happening, but when I was watching throughout it, when I was seeing how everything went, I could see what was going on throughout the rest of the scene. So I did like the shaky cam that they used for this. There were a couple of chase scenes where it kind of got a little too out of focus, but for the most part, I thought the shaky cam worked fine. What I also love too is I like that the story they develop with Bourne's past, because we do start to learn some things that we didn't. We do start to learn a couple things that we didn't see from the previous movies that we finally reveal in this film. It's really my biggest positives I can say about it. Now, my cons are, I was very disappointed with the fact that even though they do dive into Bourne's story, they don't really give us much impact as much as the other films did, because even though there is a cool twist that happens later in the film that I like, it did feel very underwhelming, because there's a lot of stuff that drags in the middle of the movie that I just kind of felt it was very bored. Like, the pacing really dragged in that middle part, because the movie has a great beginning and a good climax, but that middle part was giving me callbacks to watching Spectre again, where the pacing is so slow that it takes a while to really dive into what's happening. I became really disoriented while watching the movie, so I did catch up. It took me a while to really get into what was happening. And another thing too I didn't like was that while the action is still fine where it's there, it seemed like the action went by so fast, especially in the beginning part, where they have this cool chase sequence that happens in the beginning, which is pretty cool, how Jason is on the run and you're starting to see Vincent Cassel's character, the asset, trying to kill him and everything. I thought it was a cool chase, and then you have another cool chase that's at the very end of the movie that takes place in Las Vegas, which is cool. But other than that, besides those two chase sequences and probably a couple of the fight sequences, the action is very lackluster in this film and doesn't really have much of that impact like it did with the other previous movies, where it gave you a lot of adrenaline. Also, another problem I had was there was a lot of callbacks that they had from the other movies where it didn't really seem like they were doing their own story. Because, for one, this film felt like it was more of an ultimatum, where it's not really giving us like anything new than what we've probably seen than what we've seen before. You know, it just, other than probably the plot involves Jason Bourne and his backstory, and also this surveillance plot that they use, which I thought was really clever. The movie doesn't really have much of a story going for it that I got into that much. It really was a rinse and repeat of what we see in the other films. So it's definitely a step down from the other three movies, but I do like it better than Legacy. There were some action beats that were cool in some parts, but it just didn't really give so much of that vibe like it was with the other film. So this is definitely a disappointment for me, and I don't want to go into too much detail with it, but I can definitely say that I will own the film when it comes out, but it's not something that I'm going to watch it's not something I really recommend in the theater. I'd recommend more of it as just rent it on like Redbox or catch it up on Netflix or something. I'm going to give the movie a 6 out of 10. What did you guys think of Jason Bourne? Comment below, and if you like what you see here, you can check out my channel on YouTube, and I'll see you guys in my next review.